Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Well, the Obama administration continues to push its official narrative on what exactly happened with that downed Malaysian air flight. They are giving us more certainty with very different details every day. Now, the administration continues to promise us that that evidence will be forthcoming. But for now, just look to all the YouTube videos and the social media as the evidence.
All you're willing to present publicly that backs up your version of the story, which may well be the correct version of the story, but all you have, well, it may well be, but I don't know. Because I haven't seen your evidence that shows that the missile was launched from rebel-held territory. All of the accounts that do not support your version of events are wrong, and all of the ones that do support it are right?
Look, we make assessments based on a variety of intelligence and a variety of information, some of which we can talk about publicly and some of which we can't.
Again, you might be right, but I don't see how you can say that everything we say is right and everything the Russians say is a lie. Well, that's exactly what you're just saying.
That's not what I said. I said I would say that we are not two credible, equally credible parties when it comes to what we say publicly about the conflict in Ukraine.
And your argument would be that the U.S. is more credible than the Russians are,
I'm not even signifying that question with a response.
Well, I mean,
But did you see that impression?
But we're more credible? Yes, we don't put out mass amounts of propaganda. We don't put out misinformation about what's happening there repeatedly over the course of this conflict, which I've spoken about from this podium day after day.
See, they would love to show us their absolute proof, but it's classified. Americans, we just can't know just yet exactly what they know, but they just want us to take what they say as proof, and for now, just check out the YouTubes, check out the Twitter accounts. Now, we heard this same exact thing with the Boston bombing narrative, that they had absolute surveillance footage of the Tsarnaevs dropping the backpacks off there at the marathon's finish line. Now, the governor didn't even review this footage himself. He was just briefed on the surveillance tapes by the police, but he went out to all of America and said, I've seen it. These are the only two suspects. Just trust this official narrative that we're giving you. And this is exactly what happened there. There was absolute evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Of course, that faulty information launched a decade-long war. So there is a problem when they say, just trust YouTube. We already know that it can be tampered with. If that is their logic, then here is irrefutable proof of a baby T-Rex at a baseball game. Or also, if you go on YouTube, you can find actual footage of ghosts. Now, also, the White House is using as their irrefutable evidence social media accounts, Twitter accounts. Basically, the Ukrainian rebels, one of them tweeted out when the plane was shot down how they were just, excited that they had shot down a plane, and then it was deleted once they found out that it was actually a passenger jet. And they're using this as evidence that the Ukrainian rebels shot down this plane. Of course, because no employer has ever been embarrassed by one of their employees sending out a faulty tweet on behalf of the company, of the employer, and then later having to retract that tweet. This happened just yesterday. A lackey over at the Environmental Protection Agency tweeted out to all their followers to, hey, come and play the Kim Kardashian Hollywood game with us. The Environmental Protection Agency, okay? So then they were forced to have to apologize for this auto-generated tweet that was sent out by one of their interns. It's as if the Obama administration is saying, look, we put all of this money and effort into investigating how we can manipulate you through social media, so just go there. Stop coming and asking us for actual evidence in the absence of a full investigation. Now, a group of audio experts who analyzed the tape that was released by the Ukrainian security, they concluded that it was just a bunch of different audio recordings patched together. They were unrelated, and they were just sort of stitched together. And now we have another key piece of evidence being debunked. This is according to award-winning site Mish's Global Economic Analysis. Now, this site is known to speak with knowledgeable people in various subject areas, and then they'll report on what they said. This account is coming from Jacob Drazen. He's a U.S. citizen who speaks Russian, and he reads Ukrainian, and provided this update earlier today. He talks about the video that's making the rounds that purportedly shows an SA-11 unit heading back to Russia after the downing of the plane with a missing missile or so. And of course, this is now being questioned. Going by the billboard and other features of the scenery, Russian bloggers and news sources claim to have identified the road in the video as having been taken in or near the town of Krasnoarmeisk. Now, this town has been under Kiev's control since May. Now, he goes on to describe the billboard as advertising a car dealership in that town, as well as pointing out that an architectural structure that is in that area is also in the town of Krasnoarmeisk. This town is 74 miles from the Russian border and about 49 miles from where the Malaysian 777 went down. Again, that area has been under Kiev's control since May. But the State Department tells AP reporter Matt Lee that they're not even going to dignify his question with an answer when he dares question the official government narrative. But that is not all. Now there is also video coming out of the BBC. It is showing the reaction by the Ukrainian rebels expressing surprise when they realized that it was a downed passenger flight.
They're foreigners, a voice says. Who allowed them to fly over here?
Now, of course, this video doesn't prove whether or not they were responsible for shooting down the flight, but it does suggest that there was no deliberate plot to target the plane. Now, additionally, contrary to the media reports that are trying to accuse the rebels of attempting to hide or cover up evidence, the men in this clip seem very keen to recover the black boxes from the crash site. And they're also heard saying, gather up the information. Information is the most important. And as of today, they have made arrangements with the Malaysian authorities to hand over the recovered black boxes. Now, Russia has also offered up the evidence it has. The Russia's defense ministry on Monday presented its first detailed account of the final moments of the downed Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. Well, the Wall Street Journal reports that Russian radar had spotted a second aircraft in the vicinity that shortly before the crash, and that satellite imagery showed Ukraine had moved missile systems into the area before the incident. Now, again, this was an elaborate presentation. It was displaying radar and satellite imagery, and the defense ministry said that it was likely that that second airplane was a Ukrainian fighter jet. They also show these satellite photos allegedly portraying several Buk ground-to-air missile systems in the area close to where the plane crashed. Now, the systems, according to Mr. Mukashev, who gave this presentation, says they could only belong to the Ukrainian military. And there were a series of questions asked throughout the presentation, but nothing was concluded, which was in direct contrast to what we're seeing in the West. They presented zero evidence, really, but have drawn many inflammatory and politically motivated conclusions. Now, Russia here is showing their evidence, and now it is time for the Pentagon and the West to show their images, their data, and back it up with their explanations. But instead, we are told to just go and check out social media. People are asking for hard evidence, and the White House is saying, go look at YouTube. It's all right there. But it's not just the White House that is stalling on releasing evidence. A source in Kiev told the Interfax news agency that Ukraine's security service has confiscated recordings of conversations between Ukrainian air traffic control and the crew of the doomed airliner. Now, Ukrainian security services confiscated these tapes immediately after the incident, but so far those recordings have yet to be released. Now, considering that the last recordings of Malaysian air flight MH370, that flight that went missing, those recordings were released within about 3 days. Now, that means these recordings should have already been turned over, considering how much important information can be gleaned from them. Here is Paul Joseph Watson with a little more.
The release of these transcripts will help us clear up why, on the day of the shootdown, MH17's flight path went directly over a conflict zone, in contradiction to the previous 10 flight paths of the same aircraft, which avoided the area of eastern Ukraine. They may also provide an insight into why the pilots of MH17 were ordered by air traffic control authorities to fly at 33,000 feet when initially the flight path that they had filed was for an altitude of 35,000 feet. Was this merely due to storms, or was there another reason? Again, the air traffic control tapes will tell us that, but Kiev seems to be very reluctant to release them. Was MH17 escorted by Ukrainian fighter jets, as top aviation experts have asserted, again, not Russian propaganda, top international aviation experts have asserted that the commercial airliner MH17 was, in all likelihood, escorted by Ukrainian fighter jets before its shootdown. And again, if that's the case, then it will be evident in the conversations between the pilots and air traffic control. So why is Kiev not releasing the transcript of those conversations? Are they trying to hide the fact, as Russia asserted yesterday, that MH17 indeed was being escorted by a second plane, that there were either one or more other aircraft in the vicinity of MH17, most likely Ukrainian fighter jets? That's what Russia asserted. They presented radar and satellite evidence to attest to that fact. The only evidence we've seen from Kiev so far is dodgy YouTube videos which seem hastily slapped together and badly attributed social media posts. Not exactly an abundance of hardcore evidence coming from Kiev to prove their claim that pro-Russian separatist rebels shot down MH17.
So rebels have agreed to give up the black boxes to Malaysian authorities, and yet Kiev, who is pointing this finger of irrefutable proof at Russia, has yet to hand over these recordings. So who is trying to conceal evidence here? Now, we here at InfoWars are not jumping to any conclusions. We are just saying, bring us some actual facts and evidence before you launch World War III. Now, coming up, there is a new race-baiting tactic being used to convince Americans for amnesty.